Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Friday. So this is the time of year where you always need something subsurface on the days where it may be too cloudy to catch them on a slow dragging technique on the bottom, or too much wind to catch them on top water. So I like a lipless crankbait once we get into the fall months, because this is one of the most natural presentations. Shatter everywhere. You know, a crankbait, the normal one, deep diving, medium, or shallow running, are great when you have fish that are relating to the bottom, but when they're suspended and they're chasing bait, a lipless crankbait is my favorite option. So what I typically look for this time of year is some type of ditch or flat, and the fish aren't gonna always be in the ditch, they're not always gonna be up on the flat, but there's something there that's keeping them, and the bait is going to be transitioning from those two areas. So half-ounce lipless crankbait anytime I'm deeper than 3 feet of water, and when I get shallower than 3, I like that quarter. I've done a lot of videos talking about how much I like that quarter, but this is a big fish bait. For as small as it is, I've caught more big fish on this little bait than I have on any other bait that small. So don't sleep on the quarter. But the key to this whole thing is when you may find some fish with a Texas rig, you may find some fish with a jig or something slow moving on the bottom, and those fish are relating to the edge of whatever it may be, the structure, the grass line, the bushes, cover. On days when you have wind in the fall months, the bass aren't gonna always just stay on that line. That bait's gonna get pushed around by whatever they're feeding on in those pockets or ditches or drains, and the bass are gonna follow them. So instead of trying to fish slow and keep your bait on that edge, I like to cover water in those structure spots with a lipless crankbait. So it's gonna be a lot of yo-yoing this time of year. It's gonna be a lot of killing it and letting it fall down the bottom. But the biggest thing is contact with whatever you have. So hard bottom is key for this bait. So you wanna deflect it off the shell and the rock, whatever it may be, gravel. And if you have grass, it's really gonna be a player. Just keep it out of the grass. So the biggest difference you'll see from this time of year compared to the early spring months is your lakes have grown up if you're on a grass fishery. So instead of throwing this half, that's gonna run, 2.5, 3 feet underneath the water, if that grass is up closer to the surface, you're gonna wanna fish this quarter. Now, where I'm typically throwing this is out in the middle of the drain. So the bass are going to be above that grass, they're gonna be relating to the structure, but they're still gonna be feeding. So they're just gonna be on the deeper part of it, and that's where the lipless crankbait is a really good bait to fish in all depth ranges. So this is a bait that I throw all summer, and all year really, but unfortunately a lot of times in the summer months, June and July specifically, it's hard to get a lipless crankbait to where the fish live. So big lily pad fields, it's not gonna play. Shade and all those places, it's not gonna play. But once you get fish that are starting to chase, they're not gonna stay back in that shade, and especially on those cloudy, windy days, they're gonna pull out to the middle, they're gonna get around that bait. And as long as you're not fishing in too deep of water, those fish are gonna be able to find your bait. So flats and ditches again, and I don't like to throw this in too deep of water for this type of fishing. If you're ledge fishing or something earlier in the year, this can catch them, no doubt about it. But this time of year, it's more of a shallow technique, and anywhere where you can find big flats. So the backs of the creeks are gonna play, and that shad is usually gonna relate to whatever little ditches you have back there. And it might not be a big depth change. The whole flat could be 4 foot, and you could have a ditch in there that's 6 foot, and that's enough to really concentrate those bass. So lipless crankbait season is upon us. Half-ounce and a quarter, a big deal once that water starts cooling off and we get a few of those cold nights. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.